Now, Moscow has threatened the UK with retaliation over reports that Ukraine is using British drones to strike deep inside Russian territory. The Russian embassy in London said there would be a high price for supporting Ukraine and accused Britain of escalating the conflict. Well, joining me now is the former presidential advisor to Vladimir Putin, Sergei Markov. Good evening. Thank you very much for being with us. So Russia has said that the UK's actions will carry consequences. What are those consequences? What will those consequences be, do you think?
No. But what I know for sure that the fact that Great Britain made another step to escalation, and the conflict between two nuclear powers, if you go to more and more to escalation, sometime will come to the nuclear war. It's everybody who is reasonable understands this, and it's. And I should say that if you are British, you will be under the in the hole in the earth, and you will ask your other.
Well, I think most people would consider. Yeah, I just think most people would consider that to be crazy talk. The former Russian foreign minister Fedorov suggested earlier on the media here that there could be a military strike on the UK. This is just reckless and dangerous talk by the Russian side.
No. We could see that British government making more and more steps to the stairs of escalation. And sometime, if British government continue to go this way of escalation, of course, the military involvement of the Britain to the war with Russia will be absolutely inevitable. It's exactly what the Russian embassies want to say. It's look, you don't believe that if you're making escalation, it will be no strikes to you. But it's senseless. Sometimes
well, it's not escalation, is it? Sorry to interrupt. The UK government is making it absolutely clear it is supporting Ukraine 100%, defending Ukraine against an illegal war. Russia is the aggressor in this war.
No. It's exactly United States of America and European Union and Great Britain aggressor in Ukraine. Your specialists, I know them, they come to Ukraine, overthrown last democratic elected president 2014, imposed illegal, repressive, neo-Nazi regime, which continued civil war against people in Ukraine during 8 years.
There is a big difference.
Russia has to send the troops to protect people. And you continue to support this illegal regime.
There is a big difference. Russia invaded a sovereign independent country. The UK and other NATO countries are, as they keep saying, defending Ukraine, and we will defend Ukraine 100% against Putin's aggression. These are two very different things, an invasion of an independent sovereign country and the defence of that country.
No, it's exactly as you will decide to support defending of neo-Nazi Germany. It's good, but it's not good choice. It's bad choice. Look, exactly today, Zelensky gave big speech to the burying of the one of the famous Ukrainian Nazi, Evgeny Konovalets, who served to Adolf Hitler, and it's exactly the guy who you support.
Right. Isn't Mr. Markov? So isn't this just a sign that the Kremlin knows it's in trouble, that Ukraine is striking deep inside Russia, the war is unpopular inside Russia, and there is a risk of social unrest inside Russia? Isn't that the truth?
I personally had problem with getting gasoline to my personal car. And I saw a lot of lines. But believe me, after these some strikes, Russians only will support Vladimir Putin even more. And they will demand Vladimir Putin, please gives them real hitting, gives them a real response. And if you look at the history, you understand, nobody crashed Russia. Napoleon Bonaparte tried to crash Russia. Where Napoleon Bonaparte? He's out. Adolf Hitler tried to crash Russia. Where is Adolf Hitler? He's out.
Let me just quote one of your top economists. Let me quote one of your top economists, Andrei Klepach. He says, Russia will not win the war of attrition, Ukraine will not collapse, and there could be social unrest like the 1917 revolution. That is one of your top bankers, one of your top economists.
I know Andrei Klepach very well, and it's not exactly what he was told. He told we should change economic policy of central bank, which is ultra-conservative, and we should correct.
Well, he's been sacked. I mean, why has he been sacked if it was all fine?
Sorry?
He's been sacked. Andrei Klepach has lost his job because he said Ukraine will not collapse and there could be social unrest in Russia.
He didn't say it directly, frankly speaking. I think during the discussion after this report, he probably used not correct thing. That's why he was fired, because most of the Russian people and the Russian government believe that not Ukraine. Ukraine will be survived. Ukraine will be free. Ukraine will be democratic and neutral country after Ukrainian neo-Nazi junta will be crushed.
Right. Well, listen, Mr. Markov, if it's all going so well, why has Russia's only anti-war party been banned and one of its leaders jailed?
I don't know. Answer this question. I try to understand myself, because probably they violated the law. But I will ask you, if Russian weak, as you already told me, why Western media repeated many times that Russia is going to make aggression against NATO? If Russia too weak, why to have war with Russia, with NATO? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I understand the question. I just wondered whether you could answer mine. Does Putin not have confidence in his own ability to beat an anti-war party? Is that the problem, just finally?
No, the problem, my personal opinion, the problem is that some of the outside Western intelligence service try to take control of this party from abroad and use them for organizing some kind of mass destruction in Russian politics during the election. It's my personal explanation. I'm not sure about this. I should check this more carefully. The formal official position is very clear. This party violated some of the laws about about elections and so on. But we should check more carefully. But,
Mr. Markov, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, I'm joined now by a former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, General Sir Richard Shirreff. Good evening, and thank you very much. And well, first of all, I just wonder what you make of what he was talking about at the beginning about, a nuclear conflict, what you make of the Russian threats that were made earlier too.
Well, as you said so in your very measured way, this was reckless, dangerous talk. And if that is the sort of advisor that Putin is surrounding himself in, it is very clear that the only way this war is going to come to an end, the only way there's going to be a lasting ceasefire in Ukraine is when Russia is defeated in Ukraine. There's not going to be a Northern Ireland style deal which meets both requirements or both sides have to agree on. You can't do deals with Russia when they're represented by the likes of Sergei Markov.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because, sorry to interrupt, but Fedorov, the deputy foreign minister rather, said Russia is within its rights to strike the UK in response, he said. And he also said if that were to happen, he doubted NATO would respond because Trump holds the NATO keys. Trump calls the shots.
Well, there's a couple of things there. Firstly, Fedorov's comments, I heard them on the radio this morning, equally reckless, equally dangerous, and equally full of bluster. And this is Russia, classic Russia, facing challenges, as you so clearly articulated in that last interview, massive casualties. They've gained absolutely zero ground. In fact, the Ukrainians have been gaining ground in the eastern Donbass at Russian expense, as well as the series of crippling deep strikes hitting the Russian economy, Russian oil infrastructure, an oil giant brought to its knees with petrol queues, and the like of it. So Russia is having real challenges. And what does Russia do when it is facing real challenges? It lashes out. And of course, they're going to talk big. But nevertheless, we have to take it seriously. And so we have got to ensure that we put together a proper strategy to support Ukraine achieve the defeat of Russia. We have to ensure that our own capability is ready and for the worst case. So we've got to prepare ourselves in a military sense and in terms of societal resilience. As far as NATO is concerned, I think there is a point there, because the reality is that President Trump has undermined and in many ways shattered the cohesion of the alliance. He has threatened to attack the territory of a NATO state, Denmark, over Greenland, and he's not forgotten that. And so the message is that Europe, the European members of NATO and Canada, have got to step up to the mark and got to design and build a European-led alliance with America clearly on the edges of it. But we have got to take responsibility for security in Europe. And I'm sure that with the right political will and energy and leadership, we can do that.
And do you think that the questions Trump has raised over NATO and America's commitment to NATO, do you think that has emboldened Russia?
I mean, the Russians are not fools, despite what we just heard from Markov. They will have seen and watched every inch, every movement of Trump on NATO, and they will have clocked it all. And they will also be clocking the European response. They will see that the Secretary General of NATO is doing everything he can in his power to paper over the cracks, instead of saying, right, this is the way it is, and we've got to build a European-led alliance. So this will not be lost on them. And the message very firmly is we've got to recognize that.
So in response to what the Russians have threatened in terms of the drones, the British drones being used, do you think then, judging from what you're saying, that the Britain and other NATO countries should double down rather than, be sort of thinking about pulling back? Absolutely.
Thus far, and again, it came out in the Prime Minister's statement, 100% behind Ukraine's defence. And let's be clear as well. The support given to Ukraine defence has been extraordinary, and Britain should be proud of itself for what the British government has done. Different British governments have done in the last 4.5 years to support Ukraine. It's okay to provide support for defence, but that's not going to end the war. The only way there will be a ceasefire, as I say, is when we, Ukraine's allies in NATO and more broadly across the world, give Ukraine the means to defeat Russia. And that's a different order of magnitude. And it requires some different strategic thinking, which we have not yet seen.
Well, it's interesting because I quoted this top economist with Sergei Markov, this economist in Russia, saying the economy is struggling. The Russians can't win the war of attrition, he said. There's a risk of social unrest. So, I mean, is now the time to turn the screw on Putin and Russia?
Absolutely it is. And for my money, the sort of strategy I'm talking about, let me start by saying, I don't think this war will end while Putin is in power. So now is absolutely the time to turn the screw on Russia, both militarily, support for Ukraine militarily, but financially and economically, as well as some seriously thoughtful, sophisticated cognitive warfare to target the minds of Russian people. And that requires a different level of strategic capability. because I think the message must get you know, if Putin is threatened, his economy breaks, that is when he collapses or he's out of power. And frankly, as we've seen before with Russia, we saw it after the collapse of the Soviet Union. We saw it, over 100 years ago now, of course, but after the end of the First World War, there was state collapse. And I wouldn't put it past the same thing to happen. Dictatorships are brittle by definition.
Right. And just finally, I guess the fear in those circumstances would be that a threatened Putin, an endangered Putin, could do something reckless.
Absolutely, and I mean, Putin, you know, a rat in a corner is going to lash out, and if he thinks he can get one over NATO by, for example, launching an incursion against a vulnerable bit of NATO territory, or doubling down on cyber warfare, the sort of thing that happened in Jaguar Land Rover, financial collapse, a whole range of options, which the Russians are pretty good at doing, frankly. That is a way out for him, and therefore we've got to be ready for that. This is not saying we've got to be ready for war with Russia in 2030. We've got to be ready for war with Russia right now with what we've got, and we've got to ensure that we build up our capability against the worst case.
General Shirreff, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mark.